guys, this is Savannah and this is Retrospect with Savvy. Today will be kind of a different video. This is not really a reaction video. Well, it's not a reaction video at all. Today I'm going to be talking about Stranger Things, the new season that just came out. It's not really a review, it's just my thoughts. Now, I've been a fan of Stranger Things since like 2007. I got into it shortly after the second season come out, and I've been a huge fan ever since. I've loved everything about it. It's just a really cool show, and I love the 80s, and it's set in the 80s, and even if it was set now, I still think it'd be a cool show. But I just absolutely love it. It's the greatest show ever. The acting, the music, the storylines. Wow, this new season was incredible. I cannot wait for season 5. A few of the things about season 4 that were really special to me, I think the character of Eddie, sorry about my smoke alarm, I think the character of Eddie was just, he was amazing. He was well written, and you know, the minute I saw him, I knew I was going to really like him. And I liked how, you know, he was a metalhead, but he was also kind of a nerd too, and he fit in perfectly with Mike and Dustin and Lucas. You know, I really wish Will could have met him, because they would have been like best friends, where they both loved D&D. You know, the Hellfire Club, that was a great storyline. I loved when they had Erica come in and play with them too. And, you know, that first episode, this contains spoilers, so sorry. But that first episode, you know, where just him, that little scene with him and Chrissy where they're talking about, you know, she says, do you ever feel like you're losing your mind? He's like, yeah, like on a daily basis. I really liked that scene, and I pretty much knew she's probably going to die, but I didn't know when, you know, obviously. But I liked that little scene between them, and the chemistry was great, and I could have saw them maybe as a potential couple down the line, but obviously it didn't work out. And I knew when she was I knew when she died in his house, you know, with the Vecna and all that, I knew that he'd get blamed for it, and sure enough, he did. And I'm just talking random. I'll talk about other characters too, but I knew that he'd get blamed for it. And you know, Jason, you know, the jock, Chrissy's boyfriend, he's not justified. I don't know how the fans, not everybody, but there's people that will justify his actions. And I think his character, I think he was well written too. You know, he's a great actor. I don't remember the guy's name, but you hate him just instantly. But you know, he was justified at first, but then he, you know, it takes it too far when he starts a lynch mob against like the Hellfire Club kids, and he's like, the cops are dumbasses, by the way, sorry for my language, but you know, without Hopper being there, you know, the chief of police, they're just stupid. And you never let the town know who the suspect is. You never do that. You know, of course, he's going off crazy saying, oh, they're devil worshippers, and, oh, you know, they worship Satan, they've got magical powers, and all this crazy stuff. And, you know, but I think, apart from Chrissy, I think he just has it out for people like Eddie and Mike and Dustin and the other kids. You know, I just think he has it out for kids like that. They just, you know, he's the stereotypical jock, like, oh, I'm so cool, like, I'm so mean to people, but the whole town's gonna love me because I'm popular, I'm a jock, you know, my parents are probably rich, and he's a bad character. I'm really glad he died, by the way, Jason. I am. I wish Vecna could have got a hold of him, but the thing is, he had it out for Eddie from the start. You know, but Eddie's character, you know, at first he was scared, you know, he ran off, you know, when Chrissy died, he was scared. But, you know, in the end, you know, instead of running, he doesn't run, he stays. He fights, you know, when he tells us, you know, when Dustin goes back, he stays and he fights the bats, and you know, and he dies a hero. What is so sad is the town, they're not gonna know that. They're not gonna know that Eddie, oh, I'm gonna cry. They're not gonna know that Eddie, you know, sacrificed himself for the greater good. He wasn't a bad guy, you know. And if it wasn't for his uncle, he probably wouldn't have had anybody. You know, his uncle was a great help too. And his uncle is actually the one that told Nancy, thank God, you know, Nancy's, you know, like Nancy Drew, that's what I like to call her. She was investigating and all that. And he told her about, you know, Henry Krell, and all that, and about what happened, the curse, you know, and of course Dustin's the one that figures out, you know, it's Vecna, and about how his victims, you know, they're all, you know, they're depressed, they're going through things, and wow. And another thing, Sadie Stink's performance in episode 4, that's probably the best episode. I mean, there's so many great episodes, but that was so, oh gosh, I can't even talk about it. Like, you know, he has her, you know, he's got her, you know, he's gonna get her, but you know, the music gets her out of it, you know, and she's thinking about all these memories of all her friends and Lucas, you know, and Kate Bush, you know, that great song, Running Up That Hill, it gets her out of that, and it's such an inspiring scene. Like, it's like in real, like how you think about real life things, like there's things that can bring you down and you just can't take it, and you know, you just got to get away from it. And I think music is a great help with all that, because music really does help us out of situations. I think music's very powerful, and I'm glad, you know, that music was incorporated in that. That was a great scene. And you know, Max's fate, we don't know, you know. 11, you know, she got her heart beating, you know, she did die, but 11 brought her back, but she's not the same, you know, she's pretty much brain dead. I don't know how it's gonna go for Max. She could either be blind, she'll probably be blind, she won't be able to walk, and she might forget things. I'm hoping she wakes up, you know, and I'm hoping that they can get her back, because you know, that was devastating, you know, to see her in the state she is. Like, her life's hanging in a balance, and I hate that for Lucas, because the thing with Lucas in the beginning, you know, I remember watching it, and you do get upset because Lucas is, you know, with the popular crowd of, you know, the basketball team, and you know, he just wants to be normal and accepted. He doesn't want to be a nerd or anything, but the thing is, Lucas is a nerd, and he can't get away from that. You know, and he realizes that, you know, he had to, I think he had to separate from his friends. He had to find himself, and, you know, he gets away from them, and he realizes he didn't need Jason. He didn't need those jocks. He's fine the way he is, but he did need to find himself first. But I hate that for Lucas, because I do think he loves Max a lot. I'm gonna cry talking about it, but, yeah. I know it's just a TV show, but oh my gosh, I'm like full on obsessed. But wow, and Joyce and Hopper and Murray, I love Murray. You know, Joyce will not stop until she finds him, and you know, thank God Murray knows Russian, so they're able, you know, to figure that stuff out. You know, they go through hell to get there, but when they do, you know, when they find Hopper, that scene with her and Hopper was amazing. And that, you know, when he smiles, you know, when he sees her and he smiles, it's just like the most genuine thing ever. And wow, I'm gonna cry this whole time. But yeah. And I love the I can't talk. I love the dynamic with Robin and Steve. I love their friendship, and I love, you know, when she never comes out and says she's a lesbian, but you pretty much know she is. And you know, he could have, I'm talking about season 3 sort of, but he could have just stopped hanging out with her, but he didn't. But he doesn't tell anybody she is a lesbian, because back then in the 80s, you know, it wasn't accepted back then, sadly. You know, people had to really hide who they were. But you know, I'm glad Robin has Steve. You know, she really is a good friend, and you know, Steve's character development has been amazing these seasons, you know. And I just love their friendship. And at first, you know, her and Nancy, you're like, is Nancy going to be annoyed by her? Because at first Nancy's a little annoyed, because I love Robin, but she has anxiety, and I'd have anxiety as well. And you can kind of tell, you know, when you get nervous, you talk a lot, like you kind of ramble, and I kind of do the same thing. But Nancy and Robin, I love the way their friendship, you know, builds. And that even episode 4 where they're talking to Henry Krell, aka Fred Krueger, you know, that was awesome too. Robert Englund, that was a great scene, you know, when they're listening to him talk about how, you know, he didn't kill his family, that, you know, it was some supernatural thing, even though he don't know what happened. But you know, he's devastated without his family. He even talks about, I wish I could just be with them, like, I guess kill himself and be with them, but he has to live and suffer and be tormented, you know. And the revelation of number one being Vecna, I mean, that was so shocking. I'm like, you guys really outdid yourselves here, because I could not, I didn't see it coming. But wow, the backstory of that is just so amazing, you know, because at first when you see him in the lab, I thought he was kind of like, can you trust this guy? I thought he was kind of weird, you know, and then you're like, oh, you can trust him, and then before you know it, you can't trust him, you know. It's, you know, because the way it shows it, like episode 7, it actually tells you about what happened and why, you know, he's the one that actually killed the mother and the sister. It wasn't, you know, some other force, it was him. But those earlier episodes don't show that. It don't even really go on about the kids. It mostly just it's showing the dad and all that. But wow, that was crazy. Vecna, you know, number one, and you know, they're pretty much screwed at this point, because he's got powers and he can get them when they're most vulnerable. And I pretty much knew they weren't going to destroy him this season. I don't know what they're going to do next season, but I'm hoping that, you know, they can get rid of him, they can kill him, and none of the main characters have to die doing it. Like 11, I hope she doesn't have to sacrifice herself. So, you know, that would be the only way. I hope it doesn't come to that. I've said since season 2, I know a lot of people don't like the sister number 8, but I think, you know, she's problematic in many ways, and I don't know if you can fully trust her, but a lot of it is her. She just needs guidance, I think, but I think she could be a big help. I do, because she's got powers as well, and she can make you see things, so you could make Vecna see things that aren't there. He's very powerful though, so they need all the help they can get. And you know, Max, I don't know, she could, not saying she's going to get powers, but she could be a key in that as well. And Will, you know, he kind of has powers in a way. He can, you know, he can tell when the mind flare's coming, you know, on the back of his neck. He can feel it happening. And another thing about Will, his character's really been through a lot, and you know, he pretty much comes out to Mike, even though he doesn't say it, but that scene was really heartfelt. And, you know, the painting he did for Mike, which he said 11, you know, told him to paint it, but it was really him. He really loves Mike, but he loves 11 like a sister, and he's not going to come between them. And Mike's obviously not gay, so that he knows that nothing could happen but between them. But it's a really vulnerable scene. It's an amazing scene, and I like the scene with him and Jonathan too, when, you know, they're talking in the kitchen at the Surfer Boy pizza place, and, you know, he's saying, I'm sorry I haven't been around, you know, Jonathan's a mess this season without Nancy. And that's another thing. Wasn't really a big fan of Nancy and Steve. You know, they kind of flirt with each other in a way. I wasn't really a big fan of that, and I don't think Steve and Nancy should get back together. I think they brought out the worst in each other when they were a couple. I think Steve grew as a person, his character, when him and Nancy were like broken up. He became a better person, which you see shades of like the Steve we all know and love in season 1, like, you know, like when he tries to help, when he helps him fight the Demogorgon in season 1, and, you know, when he buys Jonathan the camera after he smashes it, you know, Steve was never a bad person, you know, he was just kind of a jerk, you know. But Billy, you know, he was way different. You know, Billy was abused, and which it didn't excuse what Billy did, but he did all these bad things, you know. And that's another thing about Max, you know, she just can't let it go about Billy. You know, she loved him, and I think he loved her too, but he just had a horrible way of showing it. And, you know, she does blame herself for his death. That's why Vecna can, you know, gets to her. But hopefully she can get away from that and get away from him. But, you know, I'm going all over the place. But Jonathan, I do think he loves Nancy, and I think Nancy loves him. But they really need to have a conversation, you know, because she wants to go to college. She wants to get a career, I guess, in journalism. But I think Jonathan would want to do that too. Not journalism, but he's obviously, you know, he takes great pictures. He loves photography. And, you know, you can go to school for that. I think he just lost his way this season. And a lot of people said he was kind of lost in the background with Mike and Will, and even Argyle even. But I think I think they will hopefully work it out, but they do need to have a conversation because he's not being truthful to her about the college thing. And it's possible she could have feelings for Steve. I would hope not, because I think Steve needs to find a new love. And at this rate, though, how season 5 is going to go, they may not have time to do all this lovey-dovey stuff, but you know, right. And another thing I have to say, I think Mike gets too much hate. Like, people are always talking about all the bad things he did, like he hurt Will's feelings, you know, he was mean to Hopper, blah, 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 and all that. But in the whole thing about Mike loving Elle, I knew he loved her. You know, when they have that argument when she says, when you write your letters, you don't say love Mike, you just say from Mike. I don't think that's what she said, but she is saying you can't never say it. I think he loved her so much, he was just afraid to say it. And obviously his parents, they probably don't say I love you ever, and they're probably not affectionate, so he probably doesn't know that. And that could go to Nancy too, because they've just not been around people, you know, that can say I love you. But their parents obviously do love them, but you know, it's different. But you know, that scene where he does finally tell her he loves her, it's so great. The whole monologue, I've rewatched it several times, and it brings her out of that, you know. His love for her saved her, you know. It was a beautiful scene, and Mike is a great character. He just has, I think he has anxiety, and he has trouble expressing himself some way, and that could be due to his parents even. But, you know, I do think he's a good friend. And the thing is, you know, a lot of people said, why didn't he help Elle at the skating rink? Well, in his defense, you know, everything happened so fast, and he thought those girls were her friends, and the next thing he knows, they're just to the point where it's so cruel that they're bullying her, and he doesn't know what to think, and he tries to stop it, and you know, he runs towards Elle to help her, but she runs away. And you know, in his point, you know, when he goes down there, he wants to see Elle, that's his girlfriend, and I guess Will wants to spend time with him too, but I guess he obviously feels left out, and he feels like his best friend's gone. But I guess Mike feels like he wants to be with his girlfriend, but he wants to be a good friend to Will. I guess he just feels like he can't do both, but he can, and I think he will realize that. He is a good friend, I do think. I don't think he deserves all the hate. I mean, his character's always been amazing. Even in season 3, when, you know, he hurt Will's feelings, he tried to apologize, but Will just kind of wrote it off, you know. And where Will, you know, is gay, he's, you know, he's got a lot of issues, plus he was stuck in the upside down, and that really messed with his mind, you know. And he was never able to be like the other kids, but for that reason, you know, even in season 3, they're all just like in different wavelengths, you know. But I think, you know, hopefully, you know, this doesn't kill Will. You know, he might be the key, kind of like how Harry Potter was the key to the Dark Lord in defeating Vecna. But yeah, my favorite thing about the show is the friendship and the loyalty, and I think Mike does have all those things. It's just, you know, people are a little too hard on him. They always bring out the worst things he does. And you know, he would move heaven and earth for Elle. He didn't stop trying to find her, even when Jonathan said, well, we can't keep driving, and he says, no, we've got to find her. Those probably weren't the exact words, but you know. And you know, this season it was really hard to see Elle go through all that with Papa, Dr. Brenner. I knew he wasn't dead. I've known that since day one. I had this feeling he wasn't dead, because you saw the Demogorgon attack him, but you didn't see him actually die. But you know, and I knew, you know, in the first episode where it shows her, you think she kills all those children, but it was really Vecna, you know. And I knew there had to be a reason, and you would block that out. The thing is, it was so traumatic to her, she blocked it out completely, and she didn't realize what she had done. And you know, and it made her think she was bad. That's why, you know, with the skating rink, she doesn't have her powers, so she can't just make Angela trip, you know. She had to, I mean, I laughed. I thought Angela deserved it. I thought she deserved a trip with Vecna, actually. But, you know, and, you know, Mike was like, what have you done? And it's kind of like how Papa said the same thing. What have you done? It was like the parallels. And, you know, she has it in her mind that she is bad. And she's like, well, what if I am bad? What if I am evil? I don't remember the exact words, but, you know, and I do think it was meant for Elle. As much as I hate Papa, I do, but he was a necessary evil. You know, we helped her get her powers back. But, you know, I am glad he died because, you know, he did horrible things and people try to justify him, but you can't, especially after what he did to Eleven's mom. And then, you know, he uses the kids and he doesn't care about them. I do think he cares about Eleven, but it's very warped and it's disturbing. And her true father is Hopper, not Papa. But he tried to say, I hope you can understand what I did. All I did because I did it because I love you. And he wanted her in those dying moments. He wanted her to forgive him, but she didn't. She just said, goodbye, Papa, and walked away because she doesn't forgive him. You know, he took her life. He destroyed her life. He destroyed her mother's life. And you just can't forgive something like that. But, you know, I am glad he died, though. But they needed that scene. It was an emotional scene. I did cry. I don't even like Papa, but it was a sad scene. And, you know, Dr. Owens, you know, he was a great doctor. And he's what Papa thinks he would have been. But, you know, Dr. Owens, he cares about Eleven. You know, he cares about the family. And, you know, he really helped until the very end. I don't really know what state Dr. Owens is in because he didn't get blowed up, you know, when the helicopter blowed up. He didn't get blowed up because he's underground with them people, but I just hope they don't torture him, you know. And I love that scene. I'm just being random. I love that scene with Dustin and, you know, Eddie's uncle and how he talks about, like, how Eddie was a great person, a great friend, and it's sad that people won't see that side of him because they think he's bad. And, you know, that was such a great scene with him and the uncle. And I hope the uncle, he may not be, but it would be cool to see him again, maybe help him fight against the monster, but you never know. And I like that little scene with Robin and Vicky too, you know, the girl she has a crush on. That scene when they're at the place buying the guns, you know, she kind of gave off like a Molly Ringwald type feel to it. She kind of favored Molly Ringwald, and it was cute, you know, their little scene where, you know, they were making the peanut butter sandwiches. You know, after, you know, the whole town, after the earthquake hit, which we all know it wasn't an earthquake, but, you know, that was a cute little scene. And she's like Robin, you know, that she rambles and she talks real fast and you kind of tell she's anxious. And she talked about how she, you know, I guess her and the boyfriend broke up because that scene where Robin sees her, she sees her with the boyfriend. And, you know, you could see how hurt Robin was. And, you know, so that scene having them talk, you know, that was a cute scene. And, you know, Steve is, you know, he watches, he sees her, how happy she is talking to Vicky, and he has such a genuine smile on his face. He's such a great character, you know. He better not die. None of them better not die. And I like the scene where Hopper and Elle are reunited. That was such a great scene. And how she talks about how she kept the door open 3 inches. That was a really great scene. And, you know, I think it would be very cruel for the creators to kill her off, you know, and have Hopper lose another child. Surely they won't do that. My thing is, none of the main characters have to die. You know, if you want to watch that kind of show, go watch Game of Thrones. I've never watched that, but this is not that kind of show. You know, I have to believe it's going to end on a good note. They're going to kill Vecna, and, you know, I just hope that happens. But it's just sad the town will never know that Eddie was really a good guy. But, you know, this season was really funny. It was scary. It was emotional. And it reminded you a lot of season 1 in a way. And the music was great. And the clothes and the fashion. And, you know, those scenes where Eleven gets bullied, those scenes are really, they're hard to watch because I was bullied in 8th grade in middle school. And it stays with you. You know, they were cruel to the point, you know, where she talked about her dad, saying you're dead, Dad, and all that. And when they make fun of her school project, and when they make fun of how she mispronounces words because she's, you know, her vocabulary's gotten better, but she's still learning things. And, you know, it's rough. And another thing about Mike, the way they say blah blah blah, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, well, it was for plot. I think they wrote it was for a plot point. You know, he couldn't say I love you right away because it was more suited for the monologue. He says it in season 3, you know, when he was afraid that, you know, she was going to drain herself from using her powers, and she does. You know, she loses her powers, but, you know, he even said in that scene, the last episode of season 3, he says, your powers will come back, I know they will. And he was right. You know, he's a good friend. You know, I don't think he's the heart of the group. I think the heart of the group would probably be Will. And I think Dustin is the brains, which are all smart. And I think Lucas is a fighter. And I think Mike, he figures things out. But, you know, the Mike hate could go away because he's not bad. He's just, sometimes, I get anxious too, you know. Sometimes I don't say the things I think I should have said, you know. But, you know, that's one of my favorite things. Another favorite thing is I really like the relationship with Mike and Elle, with, you know, Robin and Nancy and Jonathan, not Robin and Jonathan. Why did I do that? And, you know, Hopper and Joyce, you know, and they're great. I just love the romance side of it as well. You know, so after all this, you know, people should realize Mike is actually one of my favorite characters. They should realize that he's good. And, you know, people want to say, oh, he's better in season 1 and 2. Well, characters grow. And the thing with Elle is, it's not like a normal relationship. This is a girl that has powers. This is a girl that could die, which any of them could die, but she really could, you know, because, you know, she has to use her power so much. And Vecna, he doesn't hold back. So he just doesn't want to lose her. That's why he treats her really fragile. Like he's like a China doll, because he doesn't want to lose her. And, you know, Will, he's got other issues, and, you know, he's got problems, but, you know, and Will, you know, he wants to be accepted. In that scene with him and Mike, and when he turns away from him, you know, when he's crying after he tells him about the painting, a lot of people said, well, why didn't Mike comfort him? Well, he turned away from him and he went like that, so he didn't really know he was crying. You know, they just pick out the bad. You know, I've even had people say, you know, Robin changed drastically this season, that she wasn't the same as she was in season 3. Well, if you were up against, like, fighting monsters, wouldn't you be a little anxious too? And I think that's just Robin's true character. You know, she's one of my favorites as well. It sucks that we had to lose Eddie. You know, I thought there was a chance he could live, but there was really nowhere else he could go. If he lived, he would have just went back to a town that would have just put him, he would have went to jail, probably would have went to prison. You know, he probably would have got killed by Jason or one of the jocks even. So his death wasn't in vain, though. He died a hero. I talk about them like they're real people, but I'm excited about season 5. You know, it'll be the last one. I know it'll be big. You know, I don't know how they're going to fight. I don't know what they're going to do, because at this point, Hawkins is just going to be the Upside Down. I mean, if they leave, you know, they'll be safer in another town, but the problem will spread. You know, they say it spreads, and it's going to, so they're going to have to think of something. And they did say there might be a time jump, but I don't really know how that would make sense. But, you know, maybe, who knows. This was very random. It was all over the place, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I might make more random videos like this too. So I'll see you all later, and if y'all have any comments about Stranger Things, just leave them below, but be polite. You know, don't, if there's anything that's like mean-spirited or anything, I'll delete it, because this is not the place. Especially if you attack the actors. Like, people are so cruel to Millie Bobby Brown to the point where it's just ridiculous. The one that plays 11. There will be none of that here. But anyways, I hope you all have a great day, and if you haven't seen Stranger Things, you should watch it. But I just gave so many spoilers by this point. Well, I will see you all at another time. Stay retro.